Let's talk about meat and why it's unnecessary and how we can thrive without it in our diet. To begin, let's address the issue of protein. I'll try to be brief. It is a little complex. But, a lot of people ask, especially those who eat plant-based, where do you get your protein? And it's simple. It's like you get your protein from leafy greens, from plant-based foods, foods that are rich in amino acids. We create proteins from amino acids, and animals create proteins from amino acids. So, a cow, for example, or a horse, or any land animal is creating proteins from plant-based foods that they're eating, and they become strong, lean, and muscular. And then when humans eat animals, they're eating a foreign protein. That animal was creating proteins using amino acids that were basically constructed for that particular species. So when we try to bypass the process of creating our own proteins using amino acids, what we're doing is we're adding foreign protein to our system. It's like you eat an animal, then we have to break those proteins down back into amino acid form, and during that process a lot of them become denatured and they're no longer bioavailable, and then we try to create our own proteins using these damaged amino acids and denatured amino acids, and it's really just not working. And a lot of it is just storing as like fat, and it's becoming mucoid plaque and like this putrefacted bacteria that's lining our intestines and our colon, and becoming this toxemia that's creating disease. And it's basically creating a terrain for disease. It's like building a home for sickness inside of your body, and that's why meat is linked to cancer, to diabetes, to heart disease, to Alzheimer's. It's all these different illnesses because we can't process it the way that we should be processing food, and the way that we can process plant-based foods. So by eating amino acid rich plant-based foods that are 100% bioavailable to the body, we're immediately taking these amino acids and we're creating the proteins that we need for our body to function the way it should be functioning. We're not simply bypassing that process, butchering an animal and taking an animal's life and then eating the protein that it created for its own species and then trying to like thrive from it. It really doesn't make much sense. We're eating plant-based, we're getting protein the way protein should be obtained. We're doing it the right way. So protein really, in the whole protein myth, should not be an issue revolving around veganism. And when you ask someone who is an experienced plant-based eater where they get their protein, you look silly and you just look like you're misinformed and lacking knowledge, which is okay. Everyone has to start somewhere, but it's good that you become aware and you understand where protein really comes from. It doesn't come from meat and animals. Animal flesh is not protein, it's dead flesh. And with that dead flesh comes a lot of carcinogenic compounds and a lot of bacterial endotoxins and a lot of different variety of substances that you don't want in your body. So I want to address some of those things now as well. And let's start with cooked meat carcinogens. So, you've got these animals, you're cooking the meat, and what's happening is the amino acids and the sugars and the creatine are forming, when they're heated, carcinogen, and that's called a heterocyclic amine. And these heterocyclic amines, one in particular, PHIP or FIP, are creating cancer. FIP is basically breast cancer. It's always linked to breast cancer. Someone with breast cancer likely has PHIP somewhere in their system, unless it's it could also be parabens or some kind of other environmental toxin. But diet-related breast cancer is almost always related to this PHIP, heterocyclic amine, which is a cooked meat, cooked animal product carcinogen. You also have polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. When you're cooking meat, the fat, if you're grilling meat, the flame would combine with the fat and it will form this carcinogen, and this carcinogen will then adhere to the surface of the meat, and when you eat it, you're basically eating cancer. That's why I find it silly when I see people barbecuing and grilling out, and well, first of all, I guess it isn't silly because I really dislike having to breathe in those fumes, because that's also damaging me. It's damaging my health. It's damaging the health of the environment. But people say, "Oh, I love the grilled taste of that meat," and really, all that grilled taste is cancer. So to me, knowing what I know, I see people and I listen to them say, "Oh, I love that meat, the grilled taste," and it's like all I'm hearing is, "I love cancer. Cancer tastes great," and it's it's kind of like, wow, what is wrong with this world that we live in? What is wrong with us? Let's talk about the mammalian meat molecule, NEU5GC. This is more recent, the discovery of this molecule, but what scientists have found is that when you eat meat and you eat like dairy products, there's this like cellular surface molecule that absorbs into your tissues, and it almost becomes a part of your tissues, and then your body tries to naturally fight it off and creates antibodies against it, but because it's become a part of your tissues, it's almost like you're fighting against your own tissues, and this is creating inflammation, and this could be a part of the reasoning for autoimmune disorders, because your body's constantly fighting itself. It's because you're eating these foods that contain this mammalian meat molecule that are unnatural to our system, and that could explain several autoimmune attacks. It's something to think about. It's something that medical doctors should really start to focus on, rather than poisoning people with chemicals, petrochemicals, and these damaging pharmaceutical drugs, and removing organs that shouldn't be removed. They really should focus on the diet aspect, which is really the only thing that matters when it comes to reversing illness. In addition to the heterocyclic amines, the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, the mammalian meat molecule, you also have bacterial endotoxins, and all these different bacteria in the meat, they start to thrive and they start to excrete waste, and the waste, the excretion from these bacteria and from the yeast and all the other harmful compounds in your body, they become toxins, and all of these toxins that you're putting in, they accumulate together in what is known as toxemia, which is like the root cause of disease. And this toxemia, it lingers in your system. It's like all of this mucus from the mucus-forming foods, which meat is one of the most mucus-forming foods, and sickness binds to it. You've created a terrain for disease, and it's come from eating meat. Additionally, you have saturated fat, you have cholesterol, and I know a lot of erroneous reports are coming out that, you can eat animal products and lower your cholesterol levels just by removing carbohydrates. Yeah, if you remove refined starches and refined sugars, your cholesterol levels can go down. Sugar is directly related to cholesterol levels, but you don't want to add foreign cholesterol to your system. Our body naturally produces cholesterol as it's needed when our system is functioning at a healthy level. So this whole fallacy that we need animal products, none of it is accurate. It's just that it's a fallacy. It's erroneous. We can benefit. And we should not be eating refined sugars or refined carbohydrates, but those are not nearly as bad as eating meat or eating dairy or eating eggs. Meat is highly toxic to the body. The saturated fat in meat, the trans fat, that's all damaging the endothelial cells that line your coronary artery. They line your intestinal mucosa, your stomach lining. And so what's happening is you're eating meat, all these damaging fats are in there, they're destroying your endothelial cells, and then now you start experiencing things like leaky gut syndrome, inflammation that leads to heart disease. All of these different factors, they're all linked to eating meat. What about Alzheimer's disease? I would put a large wager on the idea that any person today who's eating meat and will eat meat over the course of their lifetime will develop Alzheimer's disease later in life if they do not already die from cancer, heart disease, or diabetes. or some other disease linked to meat eating. And I stand strong by that claim. I really believe that to be true. Meat is directly linked to Alzheimer's disease. Again, this whole idea of toxemia and all the poisons in your system and all this mucus forming food, and you cannot remove any of that from your system. So when you start to wake up and realize how bad meat is, there are some things you can do right away to reverse and somewhat counter the damage that's already been done to your body. And I would say start off by doing a series of colon hydrotherapy sessions to start breaking up that mucoid plaque that's coating your colon and your intestines and removing it. Do some lymphatic drainages. It helps to do a lymphatic drainage prior to colon hydrotherapy to break up some of that mucus and get your lymph moving again, and then draw it out through your colon the way it should be removed. Drinking green juices, fresh organic green juices like kale, celery, cucumber, apple, lemon, ginger, chard, parsley, cilantro, throwing all of that stuff together in a juice and drinking it daily, that will really help to clean up your kidneys. Doing some liver, gallbladder cleanses. There are a lot of good protocols. Jeff Premack has a really good protocol. Dr. Hulda Clark has a good protocol. I even mentioned some stuff in my book, The Raw Cure. There are several things that you can do to start getting your body working again the right way and to remove all those toxins that you've built up from a lifetime of eating meat and being deceived by the meat industry. One last thing I want to talk about with meat before I wrap it up is genetically modified organisms. Animals are, especially those in factory farms, even some on what they call humane, sustainable farms, like it's ever humane to kill anything. But some of these animals on those farms even, but pretty much all animals in factory farms are eating genetically modified soy and corn and being fattened with it. And what they're doing is they're splicing foreign genes into the DNA of the corn and the soy crop, the canola crop, and even the sugar beet crop. And one of them is the Bt soil bacterium, Bacillus thuringiensis. And what that does, the purpose of it is it's an insecticide. And insects are, when they bite into that crop, then the crop is naturally emitting this insecticide, and so the insect will bite into it and its stomach will explode and it will die. Well, in these livestock now we're seeing similar issues where their stomachs are breaking open, they're having what is known as like a leaky gut syndrome, where they're not processing food and it's just leaking out of their intestines, and they're just like these sick, poor, suffering creatures. And now when humans are eating that meat, what's happening? We're seeing the same condition. It's known as leaky gut syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis. We're seeing all of these different digestive issues that were virtually non-existent prior to the introduction of genetically modified food to the market in 1995. So after GMOs were introduced after 1995, it was like all of a sudden you've got thousands of new diseases that are developing, mostly related to digestion. And I think it's safe to link them to genetically modified food. So kind of to review, the thing about meat, most people think you need it for protein. It's definitely not a good source of protein. It's one of the worst sources for protein for humans. So you can wipe that idea out of your mind. You can also wipe the idea out that, our ancestors ate it and lived long lives. Well, if you look at like Francis Pottinger and the Pottinger cat study, what he did is he studied cats generation after generation as they were eating diets unnatural to their species. Meat is unnatural to humans, and so when we eat foods that are unnatural, we see similar results. Well, in his study, he was noticing each generation that passed, these cats were getting weaker and weaker. Their craniums would shrink, like their cartilage would get weaker, and by third generation, they could no longer reproduce. Well, what's happening with humans today? We have the highest infertility rates today that we've ever had in the history of our civilization. cancer rates are the highest they've ever been. Heart disease rates are the highest they've ever been. Diabetes rates are the highest they've ever been. And the numbers keep getting higher as more and more money gets poured into the funding and the research for it, because this money's not going towards finding cures. It's going towards creating more and more sickness and disease. So, you know, genetically modified foods are bad. You've got basically there's so many things wrong with eating meat. So protein, definitely meat's not a good source of protein. You're building up toxins in your system with heterocyclic amines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, all of these cooked meat carcinogens. You're storing bacterial endotoxins in your system. You're basically building a terrain for sickness in your body by eating meat. So to help yourself, to help the environment, to help the animals, the best thing you could do is transition to a plant-based diet. And there's several books, there's videos out there. You know, you could do simple YouTube searches, look up fullyraw.com, look up Roughly Tempting, look up like nutritionfacts.org with Dr. Michael Greger. You know, read books like Sun Food Diet Infusion by John McCabe, the book called Whole, W-H-O-L-E, by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, The 80-10-10 Diet by Dr. Douglas Graham, my book, The Raw Cure. All of these books will confirm what I'm saying, and these videos will show you how to eat the right way. You could enroll in like a vegan culinary program like Living Light Culinary Institute, which is in Fort Bragg, California. Their website is rawfoodchef.com. You know, it's very easy, it's very simple today to transition to this diet and do it the right way and be healthy and be successful. So thank you for watching my videos. My intention with all of my videos is to educate. I don't want to bash anyone. I don't want to, you know, make you feel inferior in any way. I just want to teach you that you can do things differently. You don't have to suffer from sickness and disease, and you can thrive on a plant-based diet. Thank you for watching.